Deion Sanders hit the New Heights podcast with Travis and Jason Kelsey. And let's just say things got real. The conversation started casually enough, some classic football banter, some thoughts on coaching. But it didn't take long before Coach Prime cracked open the NFL playbook, flipped to the back, and started reading aloud the fine print. The part no one's supposed to talk about. According to Deion, Shedeur isn't just another college quarterback entering the league. No, his name has already been in NFL war rooms. Not because he's being drafted, but because teams are using his potential as a threat, an invisible hand in contract negotiations to keep pressure on existing quarterbacks. Let that marinate for a second. Imagine being a 21-year-old QB, working your ass off at Colorado, only to find out you're already a pawn in billion-dollar chess games between front offices and superstars.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Not even drafted, but already exploited. Coach Prime wasn't having it. And when Deion's not having it, the whole world hears about it. Now, Deion's no stranger to drama. He's been flamboyant, he's been bold, and he's been doubted. But what sets this moment apart is how personal it feels. You're not just hearing a coach talk about a player. You're hearing a father talk about his son, who also happens to be one of the most NFL-ready quarterbacks in the upcoming class. And yet, the NFL seems more interested in using his name than investing in his future. So Deion lit the match. He called out the entire NFL development system, labeled it broken, lazy, and transactional. In his words, players like Shedeur are expected to come in ready, with no meaningful mentorship or developmental support. And if they don't fit into the immediate puzzle, they're discarded, forgotten. It's less build a star and more plug and play, or go away. According to Deion, this isn't just unfair, it's setting players up to fail. And not just any players. We're talking about quarterbacks, the most scrutinized, demanding, and mentally exhausting position in all of sports. You can't just hand a 22-year-old a clipboard and expect him to become the next Mahomes with no support system. But that's the culture. That's the NFL. And Coach Prime is over it. Now, let's get into the messy part. This whole situation isn't just about neglect. It's about strategy. Because when teams want to lowball someone like Lamar Jackson or slow walk a deal with Jalen Hurts, what better way to do it than to say, well, we could always just draft someone like Shedeur Sanders. Boom. Leverage. It's not about Shedeur. It's about what his name represents. A younger, cheaper, media-hyped option that might just scare an agent into blinking first. Except guess what? That kind of maneuvering doesn't just play games with contracts. It plays games with real people's lives. Their careers, their development, their future. Coach Prime sees through all of it, and he's not afraid to call it out. In the podcast, he breaks it down. They're using his name. They ain't gonna draft him high. They just want to say his name to make their current quarterback think twice. It's equal parts manipulative and genius if you ignore the ethical part. Which, let's be real, the NFL often does. And maybe that's what's got Deion so fired up. Because for all the flash and spectacle he brings to the table, his core message has always been about something deeper. Respect, accountability, and belief in potential. He believes in Shedeur, not just because that's his son, but because he's watched him work. He's coached him through adversity. He's seen him perform under pressure. And now, to watch the league treat his name like a coupon code in a contract standoff? That's not just disrespectful. That's straight up offensive. The whole thing begs the question, how many other young quarterbacks are getting the same treatment? Being dangled like bait without ever getting a real shot? How many names are being thrown into the rumor mill, not because of talent, but because of convenience? Coach Prime is using Shedeur's situation as a warning flare. This isn't about one player. This is about a culture that sees players as assets first and people second. And when that mindset is applied to young, inexperienced, still developing talent, it becomes a recipe for disaster. You don't need to look far for examples. How many highly touted QBs have flamed out because they were thrown into the fire with no support? How many careers got labeled bust, when in reality they were just never nurtured. That's why Deion's commentary stings. Because he's not just pointing at the Browns or any specific team. He's pointing at the system and saying, you're doing this wrong. Even on the podcast, when the Kelsey brothers tried to steer into football fun, you could feel that tension in Coach Prime's voice. Like, yeah, he'll laugh with you, but the message is serious. He's not here to play nice with the league if it means watching talented players get chewed up and spit out for sport. And can we talk about the Browns for a second? Because that's the team that allegedly triggered this whole thing. According to behind-the-scenes buzz, they've been subtly tied to Shedeur's name, not because they plan to draft him, but because it adds pressure to their quarterback room. Keep everyone on edge. Keep options open. It's like using an imaginary breakup to scare your partner into commitment, except way more expensive. But now that Deion's gone public with it, the Browns, and teams like them, are on notice. You can't just use people's names like free chips at the poker table and not expect blowback. Especially when the name you're using belongs to someone whose father is literally one of the loudest, most influential voices in football. Deion isn't going to fade into the background. He's not going to wait his turn or play the game. He is the game. And when he sees the rules being abused, he's going to speak up. Loudly. With cameras rolling. So where does that leave Shedeur? Well, ironically, probably in a better position. Because now the spotlight is back on him, not as a bargaining chip, but as a legitimate talent who just got the loudest endorsement possible from someone the NFL has to respect. And if teams thought they could continue the whisper game behind closed doors, Coach Prime just kicked the door down and turned the lights on. At the end of the day, this isn't just about football. It's about value, recognition, opportunity. It's about how the league treats young talent, especially young black quarterbacks, who don't always get the benefit of patience and development. They're either stars or failures. There's no in-between, no grace period, no mentorship arc. Deion wants to change that. For Shedeur, for others like him, for the future of the sport. Because say what you want about Coach Prime, he talks big, but he walks even bigger. And when he puts the NFL on blast like this, it's not just noise, it's a movement. So what's the moral of the story? If you're an NFL front office thinking about playing games with young players' futures, you might want to think twice. Because Coach Prime is watching, and he's got a mic, and a platform, and a son who's coming for your quarterback room whether you like it or not. Welcome to the new NFL, where Deion Sanders doesn't knock. He kicks the door off the hinges. If you've got thoughts on the Shedeur situation or think Coach Prime was right to go public, drop your take in the comments. We're reading every one. And don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of the wildest moments in football drama, celebrity chaos, and pop culture fallout. Because this is just the beginning. While some folks might shrug and say, that's just business, Deion Sanders is out here like, nah, that's my kid you're playing with. It's personal. And when it's personal for Coach Prime, you better believe it's about to get loud. Let's rewind for a second. Remember how Shedeur lit up the college football scene at Colorado? Not just with numbers, though, yeah, those were impressive, but with presence, composure, swagger. He handled the pressure like he was born for it. Not just a QB, but a leader. The type of guy who walks into a room and everyone else leans in. That's rare. But instead of celebrating that, the NFL machine has apparently been whispering his name in a back room, slipping it into contract negotiations as a threat, like, hey, if you don't play ball, we might just go after the next Shedeur. It's not flattery. It's leverage. And it's shady. And Deion? Deion sees all of it. He's been inside the machine, remember? He knows how it works. He knows how fast this business can chew you up and spit you out. So when he sees his son, who hasn't even been drafted yet, getting used as a shadow card in billion-dollar deals, of course he's going to say something. Of course he's going to go nuclear. And what's even more maddening, the NFL does this a lot. It's not just Shedeur. How many times have we seen teams wave the "we could just draft someone else" flag when negotiations get sticky? How many rising stars have been dangled, not for their actual opportunities, but as a way to lower someone else's price tag? It's a kind of quiet exploitation no one talks about until someone like Deion Sanders walks into the chat and blows it up. On the New Heights podcast, you could hear it in his tone. It wasn't angry per se, it was pointed. Like, I know the game, and I'm not going to let you run it on my kid. He's not just defending Shedeur's skill set. He's defending Shedeur's humanity, his worth, his right to be treated as more than a placeholder in someone else's contract drama. And let's just address the elephant in the room. If this were any other top college quarterback, especially one with more media favor or coming from a more traditional route, would this be happening? You know the answer. Shedeur's getting the same treatment we've seen so many black quarterbacks get over the years. The bar is set higher, the leash is shorter, and the respect is conditional. You've got to be flawless just to be seen as maybe. And Deion's not going to stay quiet while his son walks into that trap. He's been loud his whole career for himself, for his teams, and now for his son. And not just because Shedeur's his family, but because Coach Prime has always stood on one core belief. If you have talent, you deserve opportunity. Period. Not manipulation. Not misrepresentation. Not transactional politics in a smoke-filled boardroom. But of course, this is the NFL. And the NFL isn't a family, it's a business. And business doesn't care about your feelings, your father, or your potential. It cares about numbers, optics, and control. And that's exactly what's on full display here. Teams want control of the narrative, of the contracts, of the players. But Deion just disrupted the script. And it's not just disruption, it's exposure. Because now fans are asking questions. Why isn't Shedeur being openly scouted like the top-tier QB he clearly is? Why is his name showing up in back channels, but not in mainstream draft buzz? And more importantly, who else is getting the same silent treatment? That's the part that makes this so much bigger than just one family. Coach Prime cracked open a conversation that needed to be had. Not just about Shedeur, but about how the NFL handles talent, especially when that talent doesn't fit neatly into the narrative they're trying to sell. Think about it. How many times have we seen a quarterback come into the league with insane potential, only to be thrown to the wolves with no O-line, no mentorship, no game plan, just vibes and expectations? And then, when they don't instantly transform into a Super Bowl-level starter, they're labeled a bust? It's not failure. It's set up. Coach Prime sees that for what it is. And he's not going to let Shedeur fall into that pattern without a fight. In fact, let's be real. Part of why Shedeur didn't declare for the draft last season might have been because of exactly this. Deion saw the writing on the wall, the quiet whispers, the political games, the teams trying to leverage his son's name instead of actually developing a real interest. So what did they do? They pulled back, recalibrated, controlled the narrative themselves. Because if there's one thing Deion Sanders refuses to do, it's let someone else tell his story. Or his son's. And that's what's so poetic about all this. He's not just making noise. He's forcing the league to look in the mirror. For once, the NFL doesn't get to control the spin. Because Deion is going to call it exactly how he sees it, even if it makes the power players uncomfortable. Especially if it makes them uncomfortable. And let's not forget, this is a man who's taken the college football world by storm, turned a struggling Colorado program into a media juggernaut, put his players on the map, made people care. Say what you want about the flash, but the results speak for themselves. And now that same energy is coming for the NFL's front office culture. What happens when someone like Deion Sanders decides he's done playing the quiet game? When he says, "You're not going to use my son's name unless you're serious"? What happens when he forces the league to actually account for the way it does business? That's not just a dad going to bat for his kid. That's a movement. That's a reckoning. And let's be clear, Shedeur's no charity case. He's not being defended because he's not good enough. He's being defended because he's better than the treatment he's receiving. You don't become one of the most talked about QBs in college football just by coasting. You don't earn Deion Sanders' trust just by being his kid. You have to earn that spotlight. And Shedeur has. So if the NFL's going to play games with his future, you better believe Coach Prime is going to bring the receipts, the cameras, and the heat. And if you think this is the end of it, think again. Deion's public warning shot wasn't just a rant. It was a preview. Because next season, Shedeur will be draft eligible again. And the cameras will be all over it. Every game, every interview, every whisper. And now, the spotlight's 10 times hotter. So to the teams out there treating Shedeur like a bargaining chip, Coach Prime just check you. Publicly, boldly, and with a perfectly timed mic drop. And if you think he's backing off, if you think he's going to let this go quietly, you clearly haven't been paying attention. Deion Sanders doesn't whisper. He broadcasts. He disrupts. He protects. And most importantly, he remembers. Every slight. Every backroom deal. Every fake promise. So when draft day rolls around and teams try to pivot back into we've always liked Shedeur mode, Coach Prime will be ready. With notes. Deion Sanders isn't just a coach. He's a brand. A father. A walking sports documentary. And when he talks, people listen. Not because he yells the loudest, but because he means every single word. There's no fluff, no agenda, no smoke and mirrors. Just hard truth, served cold and loud. And this time, he's directing all that energy at the most powerful league in American sports. It's wild how we've gotten to this point. Just a year ago, the Shedeur Sanders conversation was all about stats and swagger. His breakout moments at Colorado? Electric. His pocket presence? Unshakable. His confidence under pressure? Damn near surgical. But fast forward to now, and instead of discussing his draft stock or how he might fit in a pro offense, we're stuck unpacking how his name is being tossed around like a chess piece in quarterback contract negotiations. Seriously, what are we doing here? You got one of the most poised, promising young QBs in college football, and instead of building excitement around what he brings to the table, teams are using him as a bluff to get a few million off their franchise QB's next deal? That's not scouting. That's scheming. And Deion Sanders saw right through it. He clocked the manipulation from a mile away, and then, classic Deion, walked right into the fire and said, let's talk about it. Let's be real. Most parents would take that L in silence. Most coaches would keep things professional and bite their tongue to avoid ruffling feathers in the league. But Coach Prime? He doesn't do silence. And he definitely doesn't do fake diplomacy. Because, at the end of the day, this isn't just about getting Shedeur into the league. It's about setting a precedent. It's about planting a flag in the ground and saying, you will not use this young man's talent, identity, and future as leverage for your little contract games. And here's where it gets real poetic. The same man who once redefined swagger in the NFL is now standing up against the league swagger, calling it out for being performative, transactional, and too often completely hollow. Deion Sanders was the original primetime. But now he's reminding everyone that real primetime isn't just about lights and cameras. It's about integrity. Let's pause for a second. Because this story, this whole bizarre Shedeur's bargaining chip saga, isn't just frustrating. It's revealing. It reveals just how calculated the NFL's front office politics can be. It reveals how talent can be twisted into tools. And it reveals how quickly the system moves to exploit instead of develop. Deion didn't name names. He didn't need to. The message was crystal clear. You're playing with fire. And this time, you're playing with mine. And now, the ball's in the NFL's court. Because what happens next is going to tell us everything. Are they going to keep pretending Shedeur is just another name in the shuffle? Or are they going to face the fact that this kid is already a storyline, a spotlight, and a serious contender? And not because of hype, but because of substance? Because let's not forget, Shedeur isn't some gimmick. He didn't ride in on Deion's coattails. He earned every headline with his own arm, his own reads, his own pocket decisions. Watch the tape, the poise, the accuracy, the clutch drives. This kid's got it. And yet, here we are, watching him be used like a ghost threat in negotiations. As if he hasn't proven himself. As if he's not the real deal. It's insulting. And it's dangerous. Because when you start turning players into pawns, you lose the humanity. You forget that behind every name is a person who's working, sacrificing, and dreaming just like the stars you're already paying. And that's what Coach Prime is fighting against. He's not asking for special treatment. He's demanding fair treatment, equal opportunity, real investment, not hollow mentions in closed-door meetings. And here's what makes this whole situation even more intense. Shedeur knows. You think Deion's keeping him in the dark? Not a chance. They're talking, game planning, watching, and waiting. And that right there is the NFL's problem. Because now you've got a father-son duo who are not only football-obsessed, but media-savvy as hell. They understand the power of narrative. They know how to flip the script. And most importantly, they know their value. So next season, it's going to be a spectacle. Every single game Shedeur plays is going to be under a microscope. Not because people are waiting for him to fail, but because Deion just turned his son into the litmus test for how the league treats young, high-profile, high-talent quarterbacks who don't come from a usual mold. It's not just football now. It's commentary. Every touchdown, a rebuttal. Every interview, a chapter. Every win, a reminder. And by the time draft day rolls around again, teams won't be able to hide behind strategic mentions or quiet scouting visits. The spotlight will be blinding. The pressure will be public. Because Deion made sure of that. He's made this situation impossible to ignore. And to be honest, that's probably the only way things were ever going to change. This league doesn't evolve from the inside. It evolves when people on the outside break through the noise and say, "We see what you're doing." And it's not going to fly anymore. Deion just kicked that door open. And you've got to respect it. Because at its core, this isn't just about the NFL or the Browns or quarterback contracts. It's about a father refusing to let his son become just another name on a negotiation spreadsheet. It's about standing up against a system that's been coasting on unchecked power for way too long. And it's about reclaiming the narrative. So here's the part where we zoom out. Because this is bigger than just sports. This is about power, image, opportunity, and how fast those things can be manipulated when no one's paying attention. Except now, everyone's paying attention. The league can't shrug this off as a misunderstanding. They can't pretend like Coach Prime's words were just dad mode banter. Not when every football podcast, every analyst, and every fan with a Twitter account is already connecting the dots. So what happens next? Do teams step up and actually scout Shedeur with respect? Do they come correct and acknowledge his talent without trying to leverage it in backdoor deals? Or do they double down on the politics and pretend Deion's just being dramatic? Because let me tell you, if they choose that last option, it's not going to end well for them. Because Deion doesn't just have a mic. He has a movement. And now, that movement has momentum. So buckle up. Shedeur Sanders isn't just coming for a draft slot. He's coming for change, for recognition, for fairness. And he's got Coach Prime leading the charge. And when Coach Prime leads the charge, the whole damn building feels it. So what do you think? Was Deion Sanders right to call out the league for using Shedeur's name as a contract chip? Are NFL teams out of line, or is this just business as usual? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns of football drama, celebrity chaos, and the absurdity of modern sports media, hit that subscribe button. Because this saga, this one's going all the way to the end zone.